And over to you, Gary. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Vi. Yeah, so as Vi said, my name is Gary Sheehan, and I'm a senior academic consultant for McGraw Hill. I'm originally from the west of Ireland, so if there's any confusion over something that I'm saying at any point, hopefully Vi will be able to translate for you in the chat window. So yeah, my main kind of remit with McGraw Hill is introducing and discussing effective implementation of digital solutions with instructors all over Ireland, the UK, and Europe. So it's quite exciting for me today to be involved in this, to introduce one of our new solutions, Total MBA, to yourself. So thanks very much to everyone for joining. So McGraw Hill did quite a bit of research over the last couple of years in this space, and they identified a few areas where MBA programs in general might need some support, and potentially some support from an online digital solution. So the findings kind of showed that when students arrive to or sign up or to take part in an MBA, they sometimes have discipline-specific expertise, but they potentially have gaps in their knowledge. They come from different levels, different backgrounds, and they'll have a different level, varying levels when they initially join the program, varying competencies. And the other thing that kind of came through the research was that sometimes for certain MBA programs, the large cohort management piece can become a little bit of a challenge. Visibility of what the students are doing, what's going on, what their performance levels are like, and again, what their entry levels are like, what they're understanding, what they're not grasping, what potentially needs further reinforcement or support throughout the program. Giving students feedback is a challenge again, because potentially there are larger cohorts joining these programs. So being able to give each student individualized feedback is something that's, for the most part, impossible. And then catering for different learning styles. This one is not impossible. It's something that, with a lot of time, effort, and work, yeah, you can put all the measures in place to make sure that every learning style that joins the course is to some extent catered for. But it's certainly something that came up through the research that was a challenge for instructors on MBA programs. So what is Total MBA? Total MBA is a unique solution that's been designed specifically to attend to those specific needs that I mentioned on the previous slide. McGraw Hill has evolved over the last couple of years from, what you probably traditionally know as a publisher, to an organization, a learning science company that is directly attending to the needs of institutions around the world. So what we're able to do now is we're able to offer that little bit more flexibility around content, around technology, and around our different solutions to, as I said, directly attend to needs that potentially surface in the market. So Total MBA is designed as a diagnostic tool, a prerequisite tool. Before students arrive, they're able to use the system, instructors are able to use the system to identify where those gaps, where those strengths, where those weaknesses are in the cohort, to identify what level each student is at, and to be able to potentially put measures in place to facilitate that student getting up to the level that they need to be at before the instruction begins in the early stages of the program. So again, the system will offer that prerequisite piece so that students have, number one, the opportunity to see where their own gaps, strengths and weaknesses are before they join, and to then be able to engage with prerequisite materials, remediation materials, to make sure that they're able to fill in those gaps. As I said, a lot of students will come in potentially with a background or an expertise in strategic management, but potentially marketing might be a gap. Potentially they don't have a huge amount of experience with finance. Potentially they don't have a huge amount of experience in organizational behavior. And so those areas potentially need a little bit of reinforcement, and it's something that oftentimes institutions potentially don't have the supports in place to be able to fill that need. And the last thing that the system will offer is actionable data and analytics. So because you're putting these diagnostic assignments in place to understand what levels the students are at, you will have access to deep dive information that will show you where strengths and weaknesses lie. Through the remediation and reinforcement piece, which I'll discuss in a minute in terms of the specific tool that offers that, you will get really intensive deep dive analytics that will show you within even the subject areas what topics, subtopics, and subtopics that potentially students are having particular difficulty with, which again allows you in the early stages of the program to fill in those gaps and to attend to those specific needs of pockets of students on the program. So again, as I mentioned there, the joys of modern technology and adaptive technology in particular is that there are tools available now that will work with each individual student in an adaptive manner to, as I said, fill in those gaps, to offer personalized, individualized feedback. And all of this can be put in position in a very low maintenance way with little input and work, considering the output that can be achieved from the tool and from the solution itself. Apologies, I think I've gone backwards now. Yeah. So, conscious of the fact that I just have 30 minutes with you all today, I just thought I'd dive straight in and show you what the solution can potentially look like. So, see that big red circle there on the right-hand side? That is just showing in a sample course the MBA diagnostic. And again, you can imagine different ways that you could use this for your own programs at your own institutions. But the diagnostic in this particular sample course is going to be a combination of questions, probes, algorithmic problem sets that will be there to understand what level students are at across a number of different disciplines that potentially are delivered on the MBA. Everything is customizable, everything can be edited, everything can be chopped, changed to meet your bespoke requirements for your institution. You can also see then on this slide some of the different areas that are covered in the solution. So you can see there that we will have a selection of chapters based on strategy from our key front list strategy titles. So you'll see there that we have marketing, project management, leadership, economics for business, financial management, corporate finance, amongst other subject areas, again, with a substantial selection of chapters from our kind of key titles, the question banks that are associated with those, and the simulations that match up with those particular areas as well. So something that I didn't mention there, just as a quick overview, ebook chapters, question banks aligned to those ebook chapters and beyond, video content, case studies, simulations, all aligned to each of these disciplines and sub-disciplines for your MBA program. So what you can see here under this particular folder for strategy is you can see an adaptive reading assignment, which allows you to tailor a bespoke reading assignment for your students. Application-based activities, which are the simulation component, which are again assignable 15 to 45 minute short simulations that you can set for your students to engage with, touching on that application piece. You've got a practice assignment here, what is strategy, and then you've got the option as well to use our higher level questions from the question bank to actually assess your students in the early stages of the course as well. Okay. So this is broadly what the kind of home screen looks like from a student perspective, but I'm just going to show you now specifically what each of these individual components will look like within the solution. So as I said, one of the key draws, I guess, of Total MBA is the fact that it's been deliberately constructed to target those introductory weeks of the course, but more importantly, those weeks leading up to the beginning of the course. So allowing instructors, allowing institutions to run diagnostic assignments with their students, get an understanding what level they're at, where their strengths and weaknesses are, and allow the instructor to then react to the data that comes from that initial diagnostic to create pathways for the students to get up to speed before the course actually begins, or at least in the early stages of delivery. And as well as that then, as I'll come to it in a second, but the different type of sophisticated materials that you can put in place in response to that diagnostic exam will offer a huge amount of value to the students and to yourselves in terms of that individualized pathway, that individual workload that each individual student needs to get up to speed, because no two students on an MBA will be the same. So in terms of the diagnostic piece and the assessment options, there are very large question banks there associated with the different chapters selected for the different subject areas that are covered by the solution. You've got a lot of options there around securing assessments or securing your diagnostic exam to ensure that students are being creative. So that will come from policy settings, it will come from a little bit of advice and support from our teams here, teaching and learning teams here at McGraw Hill, and it will come from inbuilt proctoring that sits within the system. And proctoring is one of those words that can strike fear into the hearts of instructors, but in terms of the options that you have within the solution, it can be anything from lockdown browser to disabling copy and paste functionality, to also potentially going into deeper levels of proctoring then as well, if your institution allows for such a thing. So as I said, in addition to that, then within the question banks, you will have the video content, the case studies, the interactives, and all of this is assignable and trackable within the system as well. So you'll get an understanding of actually which demographic of students, which group are actually going to these supplementary resources that are sitting within their course to upskill before the course begins. So then moving on to that personalized learning piece, again, in response to the diagnostic, having an understanding of where each student is at, being able to quickly and efficiently set an activity that each student is going to engage with, but they're going to engage with it in a different way. Each student are going to answer certain questions right, certain questions wrong. They're going to spend more time reading or less time reading around certain topics. And our solution will actually react and adapt to all of those touch points and all of that information, presenting each student with the information and content that they need at that given time. So this comes from our adaptive reading component, which comes from basically setting chapters of content for the students. They go in, they read around the specific concepts that you've selected in tailoring the reading assignment, and the students will then start to answer questions to prove their understanding of the material that they've read. Once they've done that, the system then starts to adapt to each individual student and, as I said, present the material that they need at the time that they need it. So you can imagine reacting to the diagnostic exam that you've put in place, putting some of these more sophisticated adaptive assignments in position, and allowing the students to engage and work through this material can be highly beneficial in terms of getting students to that level that they need to be at to hit the ground running once the course starts, or at least 2 or 3 weeks into their first batch of modules. Okay, so yeah, sorry, yes.
We've just had a question come in. It's a bit of a long one, so please bear with me.
Go ahead.
I thought I would introduce you to interrupt you. With multiple topics in the product, would we not expect assignments to be assigned by multiple instructors, or multiple instructors wanting to get involved in how the product is used? Keeping in mind that multiple instructors in a single section of a course is not possible in Connect, what kind of sharing among instructors would we advise on this product, or is the product meant to be handled by a single MBA coordinator?
It's a very good question and a very technical question, and good to see that someone has that kind of intricate understanding of the solution. But there are a number of ways around that. It's something that's kind of historically been part of the system, where there are kind of measures in place to prevent multiple instructors going in and potentially upsetting the rhythm and structure of a course. So yes, it is possible to set a master account that can be accessed by multiple instructors. We can certainly do that. And it is possible to strategically set up your courses in a certain way where multiple different instructors can actually make changes to the course from their own Connect accounts. So I suppose there is a longer answer to that question, which I can answer with screen sharing, but the short answer is it is possible to allow multiple instructors to make changes to a single course. And there are a number of ways to do it, but it completely depends on what your specific needs are. But by all means, if you'd like to do a 5 or a 10-minute call with me at any point over the next couple of weeks, I can talk you through some options on that for this product or for whatever you might be using currently. So hope that answers the question. So that was the adaptive piece, and I've mentioned also the simulations component. And this is just a screen grab from one of our marketing mini simulations, but there are also simulations for economics, for finance, for different areas of marketing, for management. And so what you're going to see is very different types of assignment and types of activity. But generally speaking, our simulations are comprised of engagement with colleagues, which will generally be on the left-hand side. So actual interaction with, granted, they're robots, but they're interacting with the student, asking them questions, pointing them in the direction of different data that could be useful, and supporting them in understanding the data that's on screen and enabling them then to answer questions. The simulations are completely adaptive. So as the student starts to answer questions and feed back to the questions that they're being asked by their colleagues, the system will then start to direct them in different ways until they've completed the simulation and should have a baseline understanding then of the content that's been covered. These are very, very easy to set up, but as I said, they then have that adaptive component once each student starts. So each student will have a slightly different pathway as they work through the situation. So as I said, simulated environments, simulating real life situations, and asking the student to make decisions to navigate through those situations. So yeah, again, a wide range of simulations to choose from and set for students, quick to assign, and then push the students into real life scenarios where they're applying the theory that they're potentially taking from those adaptive readings, those practice quizzes, and also whatever is being delivered in the first couple of weeks of the MBA. And these can potentially be useful quite a bit into the delivery of the overall program and not just as a prerequisite. So another thing that I mentioned was the reporting, the data, the analytics. And again, this is a much bigger conversation that I could talk about all day, but it basically goes from, being able to see what the score was that a student had in a particular quiz, to being able to see what questions they got right and what questions they got wrong, what questions the students struggled with as a group, which areas within the question that students struggled with. All of that data is accessible at the very baseline side of things. When you start to engage with simulations and you start to engage with those adaptive reading assignments, the level of data that you get as an instructor or as a coordinator is huge. So you can see on screen here, this is an example of a report that comes off the back of one of these adaptive reading assignments. And what you can see is broadly how much time the students are taking to get through that reading assignment of reading, understanding, answering the questions. You can see their metacognition, how confident they were in their answers as they were answering them. And most importantly, in terms of continuing that idea of the diagnostic and reacting to data that's coming through in terms of the student cohort, is that you can actually see the concepts within a reading assignment that the majority of students have struggled with. So you can see here that there's one particular topic in this reading assignment that caused a lot of students some difficulty, and that was define the cash coverage ratio, just as an example. But this can be a recurring thing that you build into the delivery of the module, or at least in the early stages as the students are engaging with those pre-arrival, prerequisite materials, reading assignments. You can very easily get an overview and visibility of the shape, structure, strengths, weaknesses of your entire cohort of students. There's a lot of data. Sorry, if you 1 second, just finish that point. There's a lot of data that sits within the system that you have direct access to, but something that I'll speak about in a minute is you'll always have the support of our group and our team to be able to, I suppose, manipulate that data into a dashboard that makes sense to you and to your modules. Sorry, V.
No worries, just one more question that's come through. How would the product appear in Read Anywhere? As a multiple books with certain number of chapters, or as a single book called Total MBA?
As a single resource named Total MBA. So in Read Anywhere, all of the chapters, all of the smart book reading assignments, all of the activities will appear under one item in Read Anywhere. So yes, the service piece is something that I'm quite passionate about, because I feel like McGraw Hill has evolved beyond the days of creating an online solution, selling it as a product, and then allowing the instructor to just get on with it. If that is how you want to do it, then that's absolutely fine. But knowing that that service is now there, that infrastructure is there, that support is there to help and guide you throughout the use of one of our online solutions. So we do help and support with onboarding, ensuring that all of your students seamlessly get access to the solution. This can be integrated and quite simply integrated with your VLE. So Blackboard, Moodle, Sakai, Brightspace, Canvas, whatever it is you're using, Total MBA can be integrated, and assignments can sit alongside the other materials and other activities that you will be using for the delivery of the module. So potentially it can be a way to get students into the VLE, into the module, and engaging with materials even before they start their course. We assist and support with training, although that training can continue throughout the year, depending on, if instructors want to start engaging with new pieces of material, new content. We're always there to support with that. We're there to help with course design, to help you to position the materials in the most efficient and effective way. We're there to help with course building, and we're there to help, as I mentioned before, with report analysis. All of the data is there, but potentially our teams can help you to package it in a way that makes the most sense to you. Yeah, we are currently, sorry, just go back there a second. We're currently in the process of looking at quite a number of pilots across the territory, including one in particular that looks to move forward, which is a 1,500 student MBA program run across 4 continents. And we're hoping to get more of these pilots in place so that we can really show the value of this prerequisite tool in terms of setting these students up for success. I'm going to pause there for a second, V, if there's any other questions in there. If not, I have one more slide after that.
No more questions at the moment, thank you.
Cool. Okay, if anything comes in, just interrupt me. So taking it one step further then, before I let you all go, is Total MBA Plus. And this is basically expanding on what we've discussed so far with the prerequisite and early stages resource or solution for MBA programs. Total MBA Plus is the concept that McGraw Hill can build something bespoke for your MBA program. We can take the content from our key titles. We can design something that suits you, whether it's a combination of chapters from 5 or 6 resources, whether it's entire ebooks from 5 or 6 different subject areas. We can add in simulations, we can add in case studies, we can add in video content. We can design, using the tools that we have, the ideal solution for the delivery of your MBA program. And what this could mean then, it could mean consistency of platform, consistency of content, and effectively students are getting access to one resource at the beginning of term, and it's at the beginning of the program, and it's something that they can refer to throughout their studies, and it's all in one place. LMS embedded, as I said, with tailored readings, question banks, assessment tools, video content, sims, case studies, and full core ebook suite, which, as I said, could potentially be 7 different ebooks, 7 different smart book pieces, which is the adaptive reading, and 7 different large question banks with the aligning simulations and, as I said, case studies and video content. And just to go back to that question that was asked a little bit earlier, this, in terms of the different subjects or different modules or different disciplines that are delivered across the MBA, would mean that, yes, the students have access to one single resource potentially, but each instructor can construct and craft their own set of materials using readings, video content, case studies, and so on. And that can be paired with their individual section within the VLE, or potentially outside of the VLE as a separate kind of class or section. Meaning, yes, the students have access to a single resource, but each instructor can actually create and design bespoke materials for each individual subject or discipline. I hope that makes sense. But that is Total MBA Plus, and that is something that will start with a conversation. It'll start with a little bit of consultation with our teams here at McGraw Hill, and we'll start to piece together a solution that can be cost effective, give you a single kind of platform offering for your students, and simplicity in terms of implementation and introduction to the students. So that is it from me, and I think just on time. So if there are any questions at all in the chat window, I'm happy to answer them now, or we can get back to them directly via email after the call.
Thank you so much, Gary. I think we haven't got any questions. So what we can do is, if anyone does have any questions, I've put my direct email address in the chat there as well. As I mentioned, we can give you access to our Total MBA solution today if you just drop me your email address and you'd like to have a look at the product personally. We can also have Gary run you through the product on a one-to-one basis if you'd like to have a closer look at anything. And this session has been recorded, so it will be sent to all registrations of this Total MBA webinar. Thank you so much for your time, and please don't forget to follow us on social media and just connect with us wherever you can. And we look forward to seeing you again at our next session. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, everyone.